On September 12th, 1952, in Flatwoods, West Virginia, Edward May, Fred May, and Tommy Hyer were outside and they watched a bright light shoot across the sky at 7:15 p.m. One boy exclaimed,
It's a flying saucer.
and another yelled.
Watch out, it may be a flying saucer, and a man from Mars will jump out and get you.
However, the light did not stay in the sky. Instead, it had landed on the property of Bailey Fisher, who was a local farmer. It was said to look like a door falling flatwise and tilted up as it was landing. The boys were astounded by what they had just seen, so they went to the brother's mother and explained what they had just witnessed. The mother of the boys, Kathleen Mays, was concerned by what they had described to her, so they asked around and they formed a group of now 7 people to go see what was described. The original 3 boys who had seen it, the mother, 2 other local children, and West Virginia National Guardsman Eugene Lemon. The following story is the story of the Flatwoods Monster. West Virginia is a great state because, for whatever reason, if you look up any story about cryptids, West Virginia is probably going to be in there somewhere. A lot of paranormal stuff happens in West Virginia for some reason. A lot of crazy stories tied to it. I don't think it has anything to do with West Virginia exactly. It's probably more so that the Appalachians are just scary as shit. Even if you discount every single supernatural and paranormal thing that happened in the Appalachians, the area itself is still just loaded with dangerous animals, horrible terrain that could be deadly, even to experienced hikers. And on top of that, the weather can make it even worse. The worst part is you'll be too busy watching your footing to even know what could be lurking around in the fog and the trees. But beyond that, all that aside, it's a beautiful place. Keep all those dangers in mind as we talk about today's unexplained cryptid and possible alien encounter, the Flatwoods Monster. If you enjoy content like this, cryptid stuff, paranormal stuff, alien stuff, or even just like weird bits of history, go ahead, subscribe. I got plenty of shit on the way. I hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching. Back to the story. With this weird Goonies ass group, they were prepared to go to Bailey Fisher's farm and see what was there. And I assume they got permission because that's exactly what they did. On the way there, a dog that was following the group ran ahead barking until it was out of sight. Very soon later, kind of like a movie, the dog stopped barking, turned around, and ran back and hid behind the group while it was tucking its tail behind its legs. Cautiously, the group continued forward, and they got on top of a hill so they could scout around the area. Far off down the slope, in a valley, some of them saw an object that pulsated. It would dim and brighten some type of light. They said it looked as big as a house off in the distance. One of them even said it looked like a big ball of fire. Investigators cite 6-year-old Tommy Hyer as the most important witness because despite his age, he was honest about every question he was asked.
When we asked him certain things, he said, But mister, I couldn't see. I am too low down. There was grass in between me.
As they were searching around, a misty fog surrounded the area. Each witness asked about the mist, described it as smelly, foul, and nauseating. A newspaper published a quote from one of the boys.
As we were going up the hill, we saw lighting flash on and off and got a horrible odor. It smelled like sulfur and really sort of made you sick.
Specifically, Freddie May said that it smelled similar to old TV tubes that would burn out in old TV sets. The group said that it was beginning to irritate some of their throats and later on, their chests.
We just ran into this mist. It wasn't like any regular mist, just a funny looking mist. Burnt you up. It burnt your eyes and throat.
Through the mist, fog, whatever you want to call it, a whining noise came through.
Coming up the road, down there at the beginning of the path, you could hear a whining noise. I had never heard anything like it before. Since then, with my employment, I have heard electrical compressors when they've been shut down, and they're what they call whining to a stop. Same kind of noise. Same kind of noise.
One of the boys pointed out a flashing red light, and Eugene Lemon aimed at it with the light and briefly saw a tall, man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed, hood-like shape. The area that they saw the object, the landing location, was almost perfectly flat, something one of the boys would even mention later on.
It's perfectly flat up there. A nice place for it to touch down.
In the landing area, large stones were pushed deep into the dirt. A large circular depression was now in the overgrown field, and 3 holes were spotted in the dirt in a tripod-like formation on the edge of the formed circle. Another local by the name of Jack Davis witnessed the mysterious object from his mother and father-in-law's house.
I saw a lighted object coming through the sky. It was an oblong-shaped object lit up. It was bigger than an ordinary aircraft you'd see in this area. It had a clearer, brighter illuminated light from the top and kind of an orange-red. The top of it had the reflection of a light that I would describe today as a mercury vapor light.
There are countless eyewitness accounts from locals to the point where it is kind of insane to think about how many people saw it and would never know what it ever was. One witness I want to talk about is Margaret Kleiss, who was 7 years old at the time. I know it sounds ridiculous to bring a 7-year-old into this. I understand that children can make up anything. They have vast imaginations, but hear me out. The only reason I decided to bring her up is because she would grow up to become the mayor of Flatwoods in the future. So I thought it was a cool fun fact. When she was interviewed later, when she was the mayor, she said,
The thing was oval-shaped and red. It was bright and glowing. It was big, and it was flying at a very low altitude. The treetops had all turned brown, and they were discolored.
In the same year, 1952, the U.S. Air Force established a program by the name of Project Blue Book because of the growing concerns surrounding the Cold War and the bizarre surge in UFO sightings. The goals of Project Blue Book were to determine if UFOs posed a threat to national security and to scientifically analyze data on UFOs. At the same time, 1952 had the highest number of UFO reports in Blue Book's 17-year history. Project Blue Book was shut down in 1969. God knows if it was just transferred into a different project because the government has a trend of having these projects, then turning them into something else and disclosing them separately because technically they're different. By the time it was terminated, they collected a whopping 12,618 UFO reports. However, most of them were thrown in the misidentifications bin. Out of the 12,618, 701 were classified as truly unexplained and were archived, now available in the loosest term possible under the Freedom of Information Act. I say that because for the most part, when they release archived information, they come out like this, and there's more black on the page than there is white. I bring it up because it's quite clear that the Flatwoods Monster technically isn't even a cryptid, and it is pretty clearly a flying green man that came from space. It's in an interesting spot because self-proclaimed cryptozoologists are very adamant that something like the Flatwoods Monster is very much not a cryptid. However, people who simply enjoy the stories, like myself, don't really care what it is and just call it a cryptid because it's easier. Especially to somebody like me, so I'm not ripping my hair out over this stuff. Not judging anyone on either side, I frankly don't care. I am simply saying if you have a problem with me either referring to this guy as a cryptid or one of the previously mentioned things as a cryptid like Mothman, my bad, but I do not care. Throughout the country, the story of the Flatwoods Monster was broadcasted on the radio through large networks. The reports of people seeing the Flatwoods Monster came flooding in like any cryptid that broke the ice per se. Investigators went to the small town to see what the hubbub was all about, including Ivan T. Sabderson, which many of the quotes and information I got came from. And then later on, Frank C. Freshnio Jr. came along and wrote a book by the name of The Braxton County Monster, which is where I got a lot of my research from. I highly recommend it if you're interested. Possible explanations get a little funky to me because, to be honest, I have no clue what the hell to believe. In 2000, Joe Nickel from the Committee of Skeptical Inquiry conducted his own investigation and said that the bright light was most likely a meteor. The pulsating light that was mentioned constantly was an aircraft navigation or hazard beacon, and the creature spotted with the light was just a barn owl, so it was a lot of weird things lining up with it. He also said that the witnesses had distorted perceptions due to a heightened anxiety, because if you think about it, they were Americans in a small town and it was 1952, so they were worried about the growing danger of communism and red men in suits, any exploding stories about space aliens, which could also be traced back to one of the boys. When he first saw it, he said, "Watch out, there's a flying saucer and a man from Mars will jump and get you," or whatever. However, I am immediately thrown off by the idea of a committee created by skeptics specifically to go out of their way to prove things as hoaxes and be skeptical. Because if I were a betting man, I would say that even if there was substantial evidence, there could probably be a picture of it. They would still say it's fake. That out of the way, Nickel claimed that there was a meteor observed across 3 states, including West Virginia, and that 3 flashing red aircraft beacons were also visible from the area that the group of witnesses were in. The shape, movement, and sounds that were heard matched up to a startled barn owl, and was possibly in the area getting freaked out by all the witnesses making a ruckus. Which I'll agree with, the creature spotted does match up to a barn owl, even when it comes to illustrations. Skeptic Ryan Haupt said that the nausea reported is a symptom consistent with hysteria and overexertion. However, these do not acknowledge other sightings of the aircraft in the area except for saying that it was a possible meteorite. But then you read the witnesses observing from far away, and they say they saw the object hovering just over the tree line. At the end of the day, we will never definitively know what it was. Lastly, I want to leave you with a quote from an interview with one of the witnesses, Freddie May. May was asked if he has any idea what it could possibly be that he saw.
I don't have any way, actually, of knowing what it was. My opinion is that it was a UFO from someplace else. I know what I saw, and it's nothing that we built here on Earth.
Yeah, that'll do it for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Personally, I'm a fan of the alien speculation, if that wasn't clear, but that's just me. If you liked the video, the little thumbs up icon. If I miss anything or you have something to add, comment below, throw whatever you got at me. Thank you for watching. Drive safe, sleep good, enjoy your day at work or whatever else you're doing today. And I hope to see you in the next one.